Hello, buddy. Welcome back to the Tin Man Score channel. I'm your host, Jeffrey Tin Man Taylor, and today I'm finishing off my Midnight Terrorist Marathon for you guys. And this was titled 5 Disturbing True New House Horror Stories. So what I'm going to do is turn the lights off, move the camera up here for you guys, and let's get this reaction on the road and in the bag. All right, to everybody, here we go.
When I bought my house, I thought I had finally found some peace. After years of apartment living, dealing with thin walls and loud neighbors, I was ready for quiet. The house was a little out of the way, on the edge of a suburban development, with only one neighbor, a small single-story house about 50 feet away. At first, I barely noticed the guy who lived there. His house was run down, with an overgrown lawn and peeling paint, but I didn't think much of it. I wasn't looking to make friends. I just wanted my own space. Then, small things started happening. The first time I met him, I was unloading boxes from my car when I noticed him watching me from his front porch. He was in his 40s, gaunt, with sunken eyes and a scruffy beard.
That would be kind of weird. If you just moved into a new neighborhood, you would rather go up and introduce yourself as the new neighbor, not nobody just staring at you all the time. But the way he's describing him, he's more like a stalker neighbor. But let's just see what happens.
He just stood there, smoking a cigarette, staring. Not waving, not nodding, just staring. I gave him a polite nod, expecting him to say something, but he just turned and went inside. That should have been the end of it. A few nights later, I was in my backyard, setting up some patio furniture, when I heard rustling from the fence line. My yard had a wooden fence separating our properties, but there were gaps where the boards had warped. When I glanced toward the noise, I saw him. He was standing near the fence, partially obscured by the shadows. I could feel his eyes on me. "Hey," I called out, trying to sound casual. "Need something?" He didn't answer. He just stood there for a few more seconds, then turned and walked away. I tried to tell myself he was just an odd guy. Maybe he wasn't great with social interactions. Maybe he was just curious about the new neighbor. But then, I started noticing things that were harder to ignore.
Before he continues on with the story, that would sound plausible, him being curious about the new neighbor, but why would he just be standing over there eyeballing him, That ain't right. But also, I would have been going to the other neighbors and be asking them if they know anything about the neighbor right next door to me. And why is he so weird? Let's just put it that way.
At night, I'd catch glimpses of movement through my windows, shadows shifting near my fence. Sometimes I'd hear faint shuffling noises outside, but whenever I looked, there was no one there. One morning, I found footprints in the dirt near my back porch. They weren't mine. I told myself I was overthinking it. Maybe they were from a delivery person or a stray animal. But then, I started waking up in the middle of the night, feeling like I was being watched. And then came the knocking. It was around 2 a.m. when I woke up to a single slow knock at my front door. Not loud, just a soft, deliberate tap. I sat up, my heart pounding. Who the hell knocks at 2 a.m.? I stayed frozen in bed, listening. Then another knock. I crept to the front window and peeked out. My porch light cast a dim glow over the driveway, but I didn't see anyone. Then I looked toward the neighbor's house. The porch light was off, but I could just barely make out a figure standing in his yard, facing my house, watching. I locked every door and sat in the living room with a baseball bat until sunrise. The next morning, I convinced myself I had imagined it. Maybe it was just some kid messing around. Maybe I was letting my nerves get the best of me. But then, that evening, I came home from work and found something that made my stomach drop. A single muddy handprint, right in the middle of my front door. That was enough. I called the police. When they arrived, they knocked on his door, but he didn't answer. They couldn't do much. There were no cameras, no real evidence of a crime. They suggested I install security cameras and keep an eye on things. That night, I barely slept. By the time I woke up, his house was empty. No moving truck, no signs of packing, just gone. I don't know where he went, but I still wonder how many nights he stood outside my house.
Okay, yeah, that would be creepy. I would not be able to sleep if I knew somebody was looking at my house. He did the right thing of calling the cops, but when they went to go check on his place, he ain't there. I mean, he didn't just already load up his vehicle and took off without any noise. Yeah, that is strange. Wonder where he went to. Or he knew he was going to get in trouble for stalking him. Yeah, this is crazy. Mind-boggling to me. All right, let's get to the next story.
Buying my first house felt like the start of something new. I had spent years renting, dealing with noisy neighbors, cramped apartments, and landlords who didn't care. But this was different. This was mine. The house was a small, single-story home at the end of a quiet street. The backyard was large, overgrown but private, bordered by a tall wooden fence. There was even an old shed in the back, tucked away behind a cluster of trees. It was locked with a rusted padlock, but I figured it was just storage from the previous owner. The first couple of weeks were spent unpacking, fixing little things around the house, and adjusting to the quiet. At night, the silence felt almost too still, but I told myself I'd get used to it. It wasn't until my third week that I noticed something strange. One morning, while drinking coffee on the back porch, I spotted something near the shed. A pile of cigarette butts. At first, I thought maybe the last owner had left them behind.
First of all, I know that's probably exciting to live in your own home instead of renting. But yeah, that'd be kind of weird if you find fresh cigarette butts right next to a shed. Yeah, something tells me that there might be a creep living in that shed, so that guy needs to be careful. Or somebody's just stalking the place, you never know. I don't want to jump at any conclusions, so let's continue.
But they looked fresh, like someone had been standing there recently, smoking and watching the house. I tried to brush it off. Maybe a neighbor had wandered over. Maybe some teenager had used my backyard as a shortcut before I moved in. I made a mental note to check the fence later. That night, I barely slept. Every sound in the house felt louder. Creaks, groans, normal house noises. But in the dark, they felt wrong. I kept thinking about the shed. The next morning, I finally decided to check it out. The padlock was old but sturdy, rusted shut. I tugged at it, but it wouldn't budge. Peering through the small gap between the doors, I could barely make out anything in the dim light. Just a clutter of boxes, old tools, and something draped in a tarp. I told myself I was being paranoid. Then, a few nights later, I woke up to the sound of something shuffling outside. It was faint, but distinct. Footsteps moving through the grass. My heart pounded as I lay in bed, listening. The sound stopped for a moment, then came again, this time closer to the back porch. I didn't move. Eventually, after what felt like forever, silence. In the morning, I went outside and found footprints in the dirt. They led from the back fence to the shed. Something was wrong. I grabbed a crowbar and forced the lock open. The doors creaked as I swung them open, dust floating in the stale air. At first glance, it looked like a normal shed. Old gardening tools, rusted metal shelves, a few crates. But then I noticed it. A dirty, stained mattress pushed against the back wall. Next to it, an empty water bottle, a can of food, a backpack. Someone had been living in my shed. Panic rose in my chest. I turned, scanning the backyard, the fence, the trees beyond. Had they been watching me? Waiting for me to leave? I called the police. When they arrived, they searched the shed and found more signs of someone staying there. discarded food wrappers, clothing, even a knife tucked under the mattress. But whoever had been living there was gone. The officer asked if I had noticed anything missing from the house. I shook my head. Nothing had been stolen. Nothing had been disturbed. That's when I realized the worst part. Whoever this was, they weren't here to rob me. They had been waiting, watching. I replaced the lock on the shed, reinforced the fence, and installed security cameras. But the feeling never left. The sense that I had almost caught someone in the middle of something. That maybe, if I hadn't woken up that night, I would have found the shed empty, but my house unlocked. I moved 6 months later. To this day, I still check my backyard before going to sleep, because whoever had been staying there never came back for their things. And that means they found somewhere else to go. Maybe another house, maybe another shed, maybe yours.
Oh man, that would be creepy. You buy a house and all of a sudden a crazy homeless person is living there. Let's just put it that way. But if the cops found a knife and some other stuff, what was he planning on doing? I mean, he wasn't there to break into the house and steal nothing. And the lock was rusted shut. So I don't know how in the world that guy was able to get in unless he slid right through the window. I don't know. Sad the guy had to move out because of it. I mean, if he reinforced the shed door lock and put a higher fence up, then that guy wouldn't be able to come back anyway, so he should have been all right. But that's still kind of puzzling right there. What was he planning on doing? That's going to be a mystery forever.
Moving into a new house was supposed to be exciting. I'd finally saved up enough to leave my cramped apartment behind and get a place of my own. It wasn't anything fancy, just a small home in a decent neighborhood. The previous owner had been an older man who, according to the realtor, had moved to a retirement home. The house had been sitting empty for a while, but it was in decent shape, a little outdated, but nothing I couldn't fix over time. From the start, something about the house felt off. It wasn't anything obvious, just a sense of unease, like I was being watched. I told myself it was just nerves, the stress of moving into a new place alone.
Yeah, I'll probably feel the same way if I ever moved out of my parents' house and to another house of my own. So I get what this person's talking about. It would be scary moving somewhere else that you're not familiar with yet. But I suppose it'll all go away in time.
I had lived in apartments for years, surrounded by the constant noise of neighbors. Maybe the silence was getting to me. One thing that did bother me was the basement. The door to it was in the hallway, near the kitchen. It was locked when I moved in, which seemed odd. The realtor hadn't mentioned it, and I hadn't thought to ask. I assumed the previous owner had just misplaced the key. At first, I ignored it. There was plenty of space in the house, and I didn't really need the basement. But as the days passed, I started noticing things. Faint noises at night, not loud, just a soft, rhythmic sound, like something shifting below the floorboards. I told myself it was pipes, or maybe the house settling. Then there was the smell. Every so often, I'd catch a faint, musty odor near the basement door, like damp earth and something else, something stale. One evening, as I was cleaning the kitchen, I noticed scratches on the basement door. Faint, but there. Long, uneven marks running down the wood. I told myself they'd probably been there before, that I just hadn't noticed. But once I saw them, I couldn't stop thinking about them. Curiosity got the better of me. I spent an entire afternoon searching for the key. I went through drawers, cabinets, even checked under the sink. Nothing. It didn't make sense. Why would the previous owner take a basement key with him? That night, the noises got louder. A slow, deliberate thump, like something knocking from below. Then, silence. I barely slept. The next morning, I went to a hardware store and bought a crowbar. It took more effort than I expected, but eventually, the door gave way. The smell hit me immediately, stale, rotten air that had been trapped for too long. I pulled my shirt over my nose and switched on my phone's flashlight. The basement was unfinished, just packed dirt and wooden support beams.
Makes you wonder what the previous owner was trying to hide. But it'd be kind of disturbing if they left a crazy, disturbed person down there. Oh boy, I wouldn't have gone in alone. I would have called cops on this.
And in the far corner, there was a small, makeshift bed. A thin mattress, covered in an old, stained blanket. Next to it, a pile of empty food cans, some crushed, some rusted. A plastic water bottle, half full. A bundle of clothes. Someone had been living down there. A wave of nausea hit me as I stepped back. The air felt thick, heavy. I wanted to believe this was something old, that whoever had been here was long gone. But then I saw the footprints in the dirt. Fresh ones. I turned and ran. I locked the basement door from the outside, wedging a chair under the handle. I sat in the living room, gripping my phone, my pulse hammering in my ears. I wanted to call someone. The police. A friend. But what would I even say? I think someone's been living in my basement. As I sat there trying to convince myself I was overreacting, I heard something that made my blood run cold. A slow, deliberate creak, the sound of the basement door shifting against the chair. I grabbed my keys and left. I spent the night in a motel. The next morning, I called the realtor and asked about the previous owner, pressing for details. Eventually, she admitted that the old man hadn't moved to a retirement home. He had disappeared. His family had assumed he wandered off, maybe had an accident somewhere. But his body was never found. I didn't go back to the house. I broke the lease, lost my deposit, and left everything inside. I didn't care.
If it was the old man, why would he want to go down there in the basement? Maybe he was going through some sort of Alzheimer's stage or something, I don't know. But yeah, the realtor should have told him about that. Man, that's just sorry. Scared the guy half to death and make him leave. But I understand he didn't want to go back.
I always thought moving into a house would feel like a milestone, something exciting. But instead, it became the worst mistake of my life. It started about 6 months ago when I found a rental house in a quiet neighborhood. It was a small, older home, but the price was unbeatable. The landlord, an older woman, seemed nice enough, though she was oddly eager to rent the place out. She even lowered the deposit when I hesitated. Looking back, that should have been a red flag. The first few weeks were fine. The house had its quirks, creaky floors, doors that didn't quite shut all the way, but nothing I couldn't live with.
I mean, if windows ain't broken in or doors ain't messed up to the where you can't close it, I mean, stuff you can easily fix. It's still a home. But anyway, let's continue.
Then I started noticing strange little things. I'd come home from work and find a cabinet open when I was sure I'd closed it. Small items, keys, my wallet, even a coffee mug, wouldn't be where I left them. At first, I chalked it up to stress or just being forgetful. But then, there was the attic. The house had a small attic space with one of those pull-down ladders in the hallway. I never had a reason to go up there, so I didn't think much about it. Until one night, when I heard something up there. It was past midnight, and I was in bed when I heard a faint thump. Then, another. A slow, deliberate sound, like footsteps above me. I sat up, heart pounding. My mind immediately went to raccoons or squirrels. It was an old house, after all. But something about the sound was different. It was heavier. The next morning, I pulled out the attic ladder and climbed up. It was dark and dusty, filled with old insulation and a few broken-down boxes. Nothing looked out of place. But just as I was about to climb back down, something caught my eye. In the far corner of the attic, where the light barely reached, there was an old sleeping bag, and next to it, a pile of empty food wrappers. I felt a chill crawl up my spine. Someone had been up here. I I climbed down fast and locked the attic door. My hands were shaking as I called the landlord. Hey, has anyone else had keys to this place recently? There was a long pause. Then she sighed. Did you find something? I swallowed. Yeah, someone's been living in the attic. Another pause. Then she muttered, Not again. I gripped the phone tighter. What do you mean, not again?
Yeah, I want to know. What do you mean, not again? Oh, don't tell me somebody had a copy of the keys just to get inside to the attic. Oh, boy. She probably thought that guy must have left, but no, he's back.
She hesitated before finally saying, The last tenant left in a hurry. Never told me why. I figured it was just personal reasons, but maybe it's the same thing. That night I barely slept. I pushed a chair under the attic door and kept a kitchen knife on my nightstand. And then, around 2 a.m., I heard it. A creak. Not from above me. This time, it was in the hallway. I held my breath, every muscle in my body tensed. Another creak. Closer. Then, the softest sound of something brushing against my bedroom door. I grabbed my phone, heart hammering, and turned on the flashlight. Silence. I forced myself to get up, knife in one hand, phone in the other. When I yanked open the door, the hallway was empty, but the attic door was open. I didn't hesitate. I grabbed my keys, ran out of the house, and called the cops from my car. They searched the place, but he was already gone. Whoever had been living up there had slipped away the second I turned on my light. The only thing they found was a small hole in the attic wall, just big enough for someone to squeeze through. It led to a crawl space between the walls. Inside, they found a nest of blankets, old clothes, and food wrappers. And one more thing, a notebook. The cops didn't let me see much of it, but from what I glimpsed, it was filled with messy handwriting. Lists of dates, times, notes about the house, about me. Leaves for work at 8 a.m. Comes home late on Fridays. Sleeps with door unlocked sometimes. I moved out that weekend. To this day, I still get paranoid when I hear a creak in my house, because I can't stop thinking about one thing. How long had he been watching me before I noticed?
Hey, I'd be paranoid too, just to find out that somebody's actually living in the attic like a homeless person and they're jotting down notes on when you leave and come back home and what you do when you sleep. Oh my God, yeah. I'd be mad at the realtor if she already knew that the previous tenants left because of something scary, but that guy figured that he was going to get caught, so he grabbed what he could and got out before the cops showed up in his hiding spot area. Question is, I wonder how long he's been staying up there, though. If I rent or buy a home, I'm checking every corner of the attic, basement, or any closet thoroughly because I don't want no strange guy being in my house.
Last summer, I moved into a rental house on the edge of town. It was a nice little place. Nothing fancy, but cheap enough that I could afford it on my own. The landlord, a guy named Gary, seemed laid back. The only thing he mentioned before I signed the lease was that the last tenant had left unexpectedly. That should have been my first clue. At first, everything was fine. The house was old, but charming. The backyard was a little overgrown, but I liked the privacy. The only weird thing? The front door had two deadbolts. One was standard, but the other was an old-fashioned sliding bolt, the kind you only use if you really don't want someone coming in. I didn't think too much about it. That was until the knocking started. The first time, it was around midnight. A single knock, tap, 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 on the front door. I was half asleep and groggy, so I ignored it. Probably some kid messing around. But the next night, it happened again. This time, I was awake, sitting on the couch watching TV. 3 slow knocks. I froze. The street outside was quiet. No movement. I crept to the peephole. Nothing. When I opened the door, The porch was empty.
I don't know about you guys, but that would bug the heck out of me. I mean, you're trying to watch a movie and all of a sudden you hear this, like a knocking noise, and nobody's on the porch. It's either some stupid teenagers playing a prank on you, or it might be a weirdo roaming around. You always got to be alert.
I tried to brush it off. Maybe an animal. Maybe the wind. But then it started happening every night. Always 3 knocks. Always late at night. Never anyone there when I checked. I started keeping the sliding bolt locked. Something about the knocks just felt wrong. One night, after about 2 weeks of this, I had enough. As soon as I heard the first tap, I yanked open the door. No one. But this time, something was different. On the doormat was a single piece of paper. A note. It read, "Why did you take my house?" I slammed the door, locked every bolt, and sat awake until sunrise. The next morning, I called Gary. "Hey, weird question," I said, trying to sound casual. "Did the last tenant leave anything behind?" "I was hoping you wouldn't have to deal with this." "Deal with what?" "The last guy who lived there. He was a little off. He didn't leave the house. He got evicted. Wouldn't pay rent. Refused to move out. The sheriff had to drag him out." I felt a chill run down my spine. Why? He thought the house was his, like he truly believed it. Said he had lived there his whole life. But I checked the records. He wasn't even the first tenant. He'd only been there for a couple years. So what happened to him? I don't know. He just disappeared. After he got evicted, he vanished. No family, no job. No one knew where he went. I gripped the phone. "And you didn't think to tell me this before I moved in?" "I didn't think he'd come back." That night, I barely slept. Every noise made me jump. I kept the lights on, the doors locked, the sliding bolt secured. But at exactly 2 a.m., the knocks came again. 3 slow taps. I stayed frozen in bed, barely breathing. I didn't check. I didn't move. Then I heard something new. The sound of the doorknob twisting. I shot up and grabbed my phone, dialing 911 with shaking hands. I told the dispatcher someone was trying to get into my house. She kept me on the line while I listened to the doorknob rattle, my heart hammering in my chest. Then, silence. By the time the cops arrived, whoever it was had gone. But they did find something. On the porch, right below the doorknob, was another note. This one said, "You locked me out." I moved out the next morning. I don't know who he was or why he was so obsessed with that house. But sometimes, when I wake up in the middle of the night, I swear I can still hear it. 3 slow knocks somewhere in the distance.
Well, I don't know how else to explain that. Maybe he was going crazy in his mind and he was thinking that he actually owned that house since he was living there. But if you don't pay rent, you're getting kicked out. And now he's mad that somebody else is living in the house that he once lived in. So he did not go seek any mental help, and he's just wandering out there somewhere. And the landlord did not think that he was going to come back. He was wrong. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this Midnight Terrors video reaction. Don't forget to like, subscribe, turn on post notifications for more content from his channel. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. This has been another successful installment of the Two Man Score channel. I'm your host, Jeffrey Two Man Taylor. I say that's a wrap, and that's Dave.